Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lip Service, a podcast of our coming out stories. I'm your host, Pam Myers, and I'm here to help share the stories of our LGBTQ plus community to help drive empathy and understanding of what members of our community go through in trying to just live their lives. Today, we are here with Dr. G. Um, and so welcome. Can I say your real name, Howard? Is that
I was
okay?
going to say Dr. Howard Gluss. You can just call me Howard. It's
Howard.
fine.
So thanks so much for participating in the podcast and sharing your story or your willingness to share your story. So where would you like to begin? Like how old were you when you started experiencing feelings yourself of being somewhat
Big-
different. Yes.
Well, I think different is a great way to put it because I'm so old that when I was coming out, there was no gay or lesbian center or LGBTQ center. So,
Mm,
in a lot of respects, I really had no idea what was going on, but I was very aware that I was different.
mhm.
And and it took a long time to really understand what that difference was. And so I would say pretty much since the beginning, like since even before I reached puberty. I mean, I can look back on it and see, the signs were there,
Okay.
but again, I didn't understand what they were. I
Uh,
just remember feeling so self-conscious, not understanding it, and in those days, really having no one to talk to about it.
mm,
Um,
yeah,
and
yeah, right.
that's
Because if you don't have some visual or some understanding to go by, it's hard to know what it even is, other than you just feel.
and obviously, I felt this attraction towards other men, but I didn't really understand what it was. I was just barely understanding what sexuality was, but I didn't start um, really getting it that my connection towards other men, and it was much deeper than just sexuality, which so much of us understand. It was really my emotional connection was different.
Mhm.
So what a lot of kids, or now I see it as older, men would experience with women, that deep connection. I had it, but it was in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's like, remember those old radio dials where you just dial it in with
Right.
generate. It's like my frequency was, it wasn't that it wasn't there, it was just a different frequency.
And so you were teenager.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Young teen. And then what did you do once how did it happen for you? What did you do once you started thinking, oh, I have these feelings for other men, or at the time boys? Then you were in school.
Yeah.
How
I mean,
did
I started acting out on it, in other
you?
words, with other boys, and there were boys in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm,
Um, there was someone in particular I connected with, and we sort of had a relationship
uh-huh.
that you could have at that period of time. But I definitely, there were this is what people, there were no places to go with it. There were no role models that I was aware of. So I did date women for a long time. I actually ended up going to graduate school, ironically, in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, I can remember. I'll just say I can remember one of my relatives saying to me, "Oh, you shouldn't go there. There's too many gay people in San Francisco." And I thought, yeah, that's actually pretty much the reason I'm going. Now, it was a really good school.
Mm-hmm.
Like going to San Francisco when I went in the 80s, it was such an eye opener because it was a whole nother world. And this was pre-AIDS, so there was a lot of freedom, and then AIDS started to come about, and that really put me back as far as coming out, because all this fear and anxiety back then, we didn't even know about safe sex. We didn't really know that it was even, there was a time we didn't know that AIDS was sexually transmitted.
Right.
I just remember having friends in my early 20s, having two or three friends that just died over the summer.
Mm.
And that scared me so much, because I was dating women, but that just scared me so much that I ended up going back in the closet.
Ah.
Um, and in a strange way, I feel it kept me alive,
Mm-hmm.
because I was I was in my 20s and your hormones are raging, but I
Right.
just didn't know what to do with it. And I ended up going into therapy, and that was a godsend, because I finally felt that I had a place that I could talk it through and work it out and try to understand my feelings. So it took me a little while. So it wasn't until my mid 20s that I came out.
Oh. And how did your friends and family react to that?
Well, some friends reacted really well. And I mentioned to you before this podcast, it was not a good experience for me. And I feel it's important, especially as a psychologist, for people to hear that it doesn't always go well, and it
Mhm.
may never go well. And
Right.
that's why so many gay people end up creating their own families, because we really have no other choice. We're not getting what we want from my family. So when I came out to my parents, and I need to put a little caveat to that, both my parents were Holocaust survivors.
Oh, wow.
So it was really difficult, because I didn't want to didn't want to disappoint them. I didn't want to hurt them. But I also know that I really had no other choice, that my mental well being, my life depended on me being honest with who I am, especially I wanted to be a psychologist. And so, the
Yeah.
basis of being a psychologist is being honest with
Right.
yourself. And so that didn't go very well. And they didn't talk to me for about 8 years. And
Wow.
none of my family would speak to me. And I look back on it, and I'm not really, I want to be very clear about this. I don't, I'm not really angry with my parents. Like, my mother started to come around. I just think it was too traumatic. Whatever issues they had about being Holocaust survivors, and the shame they experienced, maybe the fear they experienced for me, how I would be treated, and how, in the way that they were treated. Um, I don't know. It was just too much. And yes, it was extremely difficult, and I felt isolated, but I was in California,
Mm.
and my family is in Canada. So I was far away.
Okay.
So what it meant is I quickly learned that I was going to have to take the responsibility of creating my own family.
Got it.
And that's what I ended up doing. And um, once I got over the initial shock of it, which took, honestly, a few years of working through it in therapy, I
Mhm.
feel that it gave me the resilience that I never believed I could have. I never thought, in some respects, I could make it on my own, and I
Mm.
could create this life, and create relationships that meant something. And I also recognized I was going to have to do it on my own.
Mm. Wow.
And as I said, I don't want to simplify it or make it sound easier than it was. It was extremely difficult.
Hmm.
But that was my reality, and I was just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I didn't see any other choice.
Did you have siblings as well at the time, or were you an only child?
I had two siblings, which basically sided with my parents, so
Mhm.
I didn't speak to them either. So but I had some very close friends from Canada, and that became my family, because they were very supportive. My siblings were not. And to this day, to be honest, I don't talk to my siblings. I haven't talked to them for 10 years.
Mhm.
Um, and very difficult. I can go into all the complexity of it and why it is what it is, but I don't like telling the story because I don't want people to feel pity. I
Mm.
want you to see and be inspired that we as a community can be very resilient. And what I've learned, to have the strength to come out, it's helped me so much in my personal life, in my career. I've been in a 30-year relationship with my husband. Now, he wasn't always my husband because they wouldn't let us get married. But in my mind, he was always my husband.
Mhm.
And, I have nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews I've never met.
Mm. I'm sorry that happened to you, and it's not an uncommon story either, right? It's not
No,
un.
unfortunately, it's
Mm,
not.
mm,
And but these are choices you make in your life. I felt I had no choice. If
right.
I was going to stay in the closet, I would end up being very depressed, and I truly believe I would have ended up having a big drug and alcohol problem, and probably would have destroyed my life.
Mhm,
So I saw those two choices. I
mhm.
could either go to school and get a PhD and try to make it on my own, or I could stay in the closet and you know
Yeah,
I truly believe be an addict and be miserably unhappy. And
absolutely. Mhm,
so, and unfortunately, a lot of people choose that route.
mhm.
But I'm glad I chose the route I chose. It's unfortunate, but we create family. We create family can be a lot of different things.
Exactly. Right. Right. And right. That's why our community uses the term found families, right? We create our own families because so many of the times you've had to lose the connection, not because of any,
Just by being honest.
just by being honest and living your true self. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think, and I grasp this also clinically as a psychologist and
Hmm.
understanding how important that is. I've seen so many people over the years, gay, straight, wherever you sit on the on the on the I hate I'm not going to use that term. I was thinking as a psychologist like the term spectrum, but it's not negative. I'm trying to think of the right term.
Yeah. No.
Wherever you sit in your how you define yourself sexually, if you're not, or
Right.
anyway, if you're not going to be true to yourself, you're going to set yourself up for a lot of mental health issues.
Right. Yes. Yes. Losing that family connection with your parents is really a big deal, and having to go through that is very traumatic for most people. Mm,
Yeah, especially the guilt I felt over the pain I was causing my parents because of them being Holocaust survivors.
mm,
But again, through therapy and life, I realized I had no control over how they chose to deal with it.
right.
That wasn't my intention. I
Right.
mean, if anything, it was the exact opposite. I would have done really anything to be, quote, part of the family. And I did at times. And so it went in and out. We talked for a few years and then it would all explode and we wouldn't talk. Um, and then, we haven't really talked for 10 years.
Mm,
Both my parents are deceased. And
okay.
since then, um, I don't know, when that happened, there ended up being really no relationship with my brothers.
Mm, mhm. So you have your chosen family now, and
I
you're
do, and I really want to get this clear. I'm not sharing this story out of self pity.
no.
I'm
Hmm.
sharing this story to say, we can do it. Like, you
Absolutely.
know, we don't have any control over those things that happen to us, but we do have control over how we choose to deal with it. And it took me a lot of years in therapy working through my emotions and feelings, being very angry. It wasn't an easy process. And I don't know about you, but coming out, people say, well, when did you come out? I go, yesterday. Because I was in a situation where I had to make a choice whether I was going to come out or not.
Right. Because truth be told, right? I mean, every time we come out, every time we meet someone new or in a new situation with new people, we come out all over again, right?
It's an ongoing life process.
It is, right. Yeah.
And the dynamics change. And I remember this just happened. I live in both New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico, and in Los Angeles. And I was just in LA, and I was with a friend of mine who is heterosexual. He's straight. He has two kids. We're very close. And a situation happened where I had to make a choice to come out.
Mm-hmm.
It was a business meeting. And I made the choice. And he was great. He just turned to me and said, I'm so sorry you have to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, again, I also deal with it being Jewish. I deal with it being gay. I deal with it, I don't know, being from New Mexico.
That's funny.
How many times, people will say, you're from Mexico? No, New Mexico.
Right. It's a state, not a country.
State. I actually just had that with, I think it was at Macy's buying something, and she said, oh, I'm sorry. We can't accept a credit card from a foreign country or something like that.
Uh-huh.
I showed her my ID and she goes, well, it's Mexican. I go, no, it's New Mexico.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, it's the renovated section,
Right. Right. On the other side of tracks, it's getting better.
Yes, exactly. We're working on it.
Yeah.
And I feel, Pam, this is such an important time to tell these stories because of what's happening in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And even now more than ever, we have to share our stories, because through our stories, we gain strength and understanding. And hopefully it also, inspires other people, and also people from other communities to understand that ultimately we're not any different than anyone else. We just want the same things.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. If we could all look at our similarities and not our differences, I believe we'd get along better. But when we live in a country that's trying to erase our history, or an administration that's trying to erase our history, what they don't realize is it's actually going to make us stronger.
Right. Yes, it
We've
will.
been through this before.
Not the first time.
It's not our first rodeo.
Our first rodeo. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. We know how to ride this horse, and we're going to come out on top.
We're going to come out on top. We're going to come out better.
Better. Yes, I love that. Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel that was there an impact on what you decided to do, being a psychologist, with everything that was happening to you in your life? Do you think that, I don't know.
Do you think? Are you saying that? Do you think that based on my history, that inspired me to become a psychologist?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what you're asking me was, I trying to work out my stuff.
Yeah. Basically, yes, you could say that.
Well, I was, and that was a big attraction. I went into therapy and got more and more fascinated and interested, because I started feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
And started to feel better about myself, and was able to recognize, like, hey, I actually had this belief that I could not do it without them.
Mm-hmm.
Financially, my father was well off. I wasn't getting his support. I always thought that was going to be part of it. But I realized that I was gaining this inner strength, and I got fascinated with the whole process. So I believe that was my initial attraction. And I also I needed to make a living. And I thought, well, psychologists do pretty well. And I recognized I was doing some volunteer work. I was interning a bit. And I realized, well, this is actually something I can do. Like, I'm good at it. And I enjoy it. And with that, I hoped I'd be able to make a living. I didn't realize it would take so long. 10 years of schooling and internship, etc.,
Wow.
get your PhD in licensing. But it was a pretty great 10 years, and I supported myself throughout the whole process. Um, but then at some point, you also recognize this is actually a profession and it's not about me, it's about other people.
Right.
The best way I could help other people, one great way, not the only way, is I have to have this, what I call radical responsibility towards myself.
Mm-hmm.
And as we said, I got to work on my own stuff so I can be of service and help other people. And and in a way, that's the best business I can do. If I help other people, I usually do well in my practice, etc. If I know how to help people.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, right. If we're struggling internally, we're not much value
To anyone else.
to anyone else. Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean even when you become a licensed psychologist, and I'm a clinical psychologist, doesn't mean you don't have hard times you go through.
Right.
But
Everybody does.
you know, I really believe this. And when I tell my story, we can't control a lot of what happens to us as kids or how other people react to us.
Correct.
But we do have the ability to control how we choose to deal with it.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I felt that was my responsibility.
Any parting words of advice that you would like to share with the
You
listeners?
know, um, I'm not really angry at my family anymore. I definitely was. I don't ultimately understand it, why they've made, because they're pretty liberal people.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, apart from my parents, they came from a different world. So I don't quite understand it, why they've chosen this uh, to be this way. And there'll probably be reasons I will never be privy to. But
Mm-hmm.
I could only do what I can do. And I know I'm not alone. And I don't want a sense of self pity. I just want to share my story to inspire other people that may have difficult times. That, if I can do it, and trust me, it was not easy. I believe other people can do it too. And now there's so many more resources available to people of support and community than when I was, in my 20s. And
Right.
you, you know, you got a responsibility. You got a responsibility to do and be true to yourself. And unfortunately, that may mean creating your own family. It's
Mm-hmm.
not easy. And I want to emphasize that. It's not like I went, oh, I'm done with my family and boom, I'm going to go to a new. That took 5 years.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there's a lot of people out there who will accept you and love you and become your new family. And,
Right.
you know, you could
Right.
spend your life being bitter, or you could spend your life being resilient and being inspired. And I feel like I love my life. It has its difficult times. I'm in a good relationship. I'm in a good career. I have a beautiful place to live in. I deal with a lot of issues every day and issues with people, but I feel like I have a lot to be grateful for.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah, it's a
Mm-hmm.
really good place to be. And, even when I tell my story, there's a little bit of residual anxiety of how are people going to react to me? Am I
Mm-hmm.
going to get that resistance I felt as a kid? Am
Mm-hmm.
I going to get that pushback? I'm sure some people will not like what I have to say, but enough people will. And that's the strength that we all have is, we have to find our tribe. And they're
Absolutely.
not so hard to find,
No. Right. Right. You just have to know where to look sometimes,
or they'll find you.
or they'll find you. Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Howard, thank you so much. Were
Thank
you
you
going
so
to
much
say
for
something?
having me on and giving me the opportunity to share my story.
Yes, I'm so glad that you did. Thank you so much for sharing your life story with our listeners. And For anyone out there that is struggling, if you're wanting to connect, if you cannot find sources of support or help, you could reach out to us through our website, lipservice.media, and we will be happy to connect you with somebody that can support you in your community. So thanks so much for listening to these stories. Please help share.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on again.
You're so welcome.